guys, welcome to Peak Health Revolution. My name is Logan Grundy. I am a health coach, and today we are going to be focused on the importance of fiber. So, let's talk a little bit more about why fiber is so important in our diet. So, there's a couple things that fiber does for us. Number one, it helps us feel full, and the reason it's doing that is because it's adding basically bulk to our in our intestines that gives us that feeling of I'm full, maybe I don't need to eat more food, or I need to take a bowel movement, those types of things. So if you struggle with constipation, you are probably in need of more fiber. And if you are constantly hungry, you might need more fiber in your diet. Obviously, that might be a caloric thing as well, but fiber helps you feel full. So if you're also restricting the number of calories that you're eating, and you're trying to find something that will take that hunger feeling away, adding more fiber into your diet can be a really big piece there. So, number one is it makes you feel full. And then, number two, like I had mentioned a little earlier here, is that it helps our bowel movements with getting them moving essentially. So, in the way that it does this, is you have to think about your intestines as being like a tube, and to have a bowel movement, we're going to have to squeeze that tube to push everything along. Um, but if there's not enough bulk there when the muscle squeezes down, there's not enough for it to push on essentially to cause that movement. So that's another really important way that most of us don't really want to talk about all that much is having good regular bowel movements. It adds that bulk and gives it the intestines essentially something to push on a bit to cause that movement that we need. And then it gets into a little bit of like, well, why are these bowel movements so important for us? And you have to think about it as our bowels are a really important detox mechanism that we have in our body. So when we have food, it's going to go in, come down, get digested, and then any waste product or byproduct essentially that we're not digesting, we need to excrete that out of our body, and that happens via our bowel movements. And like I said, if there's not enough bulk there, it kind of ends up getting stuck and just sitting there. So we need to have enough fiber to create the bulk in our bowel movements to move it along. Think about it like this is that you would never want that a bag of your bowel movements essentially, so your crap just sitting in your house for 2 weeks, you or 3 days, or any longer than you needed it to, right? And it's really no different in your body. That's time that it's just sitting there, and our body has to deal with that because it is going to slowly leach out back into our body, and it's going to be a toxicity to our body. So we want to have those bowel movements regularly so that we're able to push that stuff out. Kind of one of our biggest detox pathways along with our skin, our respiratory system, and our lymphatic system, is our having those regular bowel movements. So that is one way that we definitely need to be excreting any waste product, along with the other ones that I mentioned there. Now, the next one, it kind of goes right hand in hand with this, is there's that idea of how fast we're digesting this. So there's the piece of we need the fiber and the bulk to make up the size to have the bowel movement, but also fiber is going to play into the rate at which you're digesting things. So I've talked before about the importance of if you're having a fruit juice to be very aware that once you remove all that fiber and you've just squeezed a bunch of oranges or apples or something, let's say the juice, it's the sugar content in that juice is going to hit you a lot harder than if you were to just eat it. One part of that is that let's take our apple juice for instance, is you're probably not going to sit down and eat 3 apples within a minute, right? But you could pretty easily drink the equivalent of 3 squeezed apples in a minute pretty quickly because there's no fiber, there's no chewing involved. So, in a sense, that is partially going to slow your digestive process a little bit so that you're not getting hit by that sugar. But also, when we actually eat that fruit, for example, the sugar and the fiber are kind of bound together. So the fruit juice is basically just gets straight into our system, the sugars from it. And if we are eating fiber with that sugar, then those think of those as being like attached. And when it goes into our digestive system, we have to kind of break it down together a little bit more, and it slows the release of those out to our body. And this is similar to what we get, the effect we can get from fats as well, is that fats will kind of bind with different other different molecules, or fats, just generally speaking, are going to digest slower than a simple sugar. So when we can bind the sugars to like a fiber or fat, then it's going to go through the body a little bit slower. It's not that sugar is inherently bad for our body, but it's that oftentimes we're hitting the body with a big dose of it and it's not bound to anything. So we're getting these big spikes in our body that our body has to respond to via insulin and our um, body's ability to release that insulin out to bring down the level of sugar in our blood, essentially. So that's why fiber is also important when we look at the speed at which sugars are getting digested. So that kind of leads us with like, okay, great. We know a lot of important and good things about fiber, but how much fiber should you be having? And what are some good choices for fibrous foods? So, generally speaking, we want to have about 15 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. So, most of us should be eating somewhere between 2 to 3,000 calories a day. So, we're looking at 30 to 45 grams of fiber in our diet for most of us. Now, if you are somebody that tends to have slower bowel movements, we might want to look at that and say, hey, maybe for you, that needs to be a little bit higher. You also need to consider if you have a really irritated gut that is sensitive to basically like the roughage of fiber. So basically, fiber tends to be a lot of it can be a little bit rougher and kind of rub on the edge of your intestines and can irritate it. So if that's the case for you, then you might have to go reduce that a little bit until you build up that tolerance and deal with the inflammation in your body causing that for you, and then you can slowly add that fiber back in. But even for those people, we want to get to this space where we are at this amount of fiber. There's a really good study that basically took for every 1,000 calories, to have an extra 10 grams of fiber, and they moved well together on basically like overall picture of your health. The more fiber you had, the better your health outcomes were in like all cause mortality. So fiber shows to just be like one of those things that's very important. There's not really a thing where it's like says, hey, if you are above or below this threshold, that it's good or bad for you, but that we see it just trending upwards with better health outcomes for us. So let's talk about kind of my favorite couple choices for fiber, and then I'm going to go over some other options. So my personal favorites, and I think a lot of you guys will agree, is something like a chia seed, popcorn, berries, and avocados. Those are my favorite ones. Chia seeds are great. They have a lot of fiber per their weight, and they absorb a lot of liquid too. So if you're making like a chia seed pudding, you're basically taking chia seeds and mixing it with. You have kind of a bit of a choice there of what you mix it with exactly, but fluid of sorts and you notice how much it expands. So that's a really good way to get the hydration kind of to your body as well. Popcorn, everyone likes popcorn. It's a pretty easy one to eat. Berries, another really good choice. Fairly high in fiber for what they are, and you get a lot of other benefits from your berries, like your antioxidants, and they tend to be a little easier on the body compared to some other fruits in the sense of like how hard the sugars from that hit your body because again they're bound with that fiber. So that's a really good option as well. And then lastly, avocados. I think they're a fantastic source of healthy fats for us, and we're also getting fiber out of it. So that's a really good one in there too. Some other favorites here are some flaxseed, pears, apples, and then surprisingly, green peas come in very high in fiber. Um, so those are some other good options. Of course, we always have our whole grains, our bran, our oats, barley. Those are all good choices too. Potatoes and sweet potato, both pretty good fiber options for us. And then when we look into the like legumes and beans area, the lentils and our black beans are two of the kind of like highest fiber options. Um, we do have to be a little considerate depending on the person, just how much of some of these things we're consuming. But generally speaking, for people, they're going to, if they don't have any gut issues, they're going to be okay to have the whole grains, the lentils, the black beans. If you're having some kind of digestive issues, then obviously, we need to talk a little bit more about that, but those are some really good high fiber options. So I'll run through that list again real quick of some good favorites here. That's chia seeds, flax seeds, we got popcorn, berries, pears, apples, green peas, avocados, broccoli, and almonds. I forgot to mention those. Broccoli is a really, as far as vegetables go, it's a really high fiber. Some people, again, do have some issues digesting broccoli, but as long as you have no issues with that, don't get super gassy, then it's going to be okay for you. As far as nuts go, almonds probably one of our highest ones in fiber content, which is great. And then any kind of whole grains, getting the bran in there, the oats, potatoes, barley, split peas, lentils, and black beans. Those are some really good options to increase the amount of fiber in your diet. And we've gone over why fiber is very important into your diet. So make sure to track the amount of fiber you're having. It's not something you necessarily have to do every day, but track your food for a day or two and kind of take a look at what's that fiber content coming out at and is it enough? And then also taking a look at like, do I have problems moving my bowels? Do I have problems feeling full? Maybe I need to add a little bit more fiber in that sense. Hey guys, thanks for listening to my discussion on fiber and the importance of having fiber in your diet. If you got value from it, I would love it if you could subscribe and like the video. It really helps me out and you get notified whenever I put out another new video for you guys.